Hi, I'm Sophie. I'm a director of the Joyful Web, and I am joined here today for a very special Friday Facebook Live, all the way from the Cotswolds, with my dad, Andy Turton, who is a seasoned veteran marketing consultant who's worked with some of the biggest brands in the world. And I'm very fortunate to have grown up listening to him talk to me about how to speak to audiences, how to analyze behavior, and how to communicate in a way that has now helped me so much with running the Joyful Web. So today we're going to be talking about how to reach audiences in a landscape where people increasingly are not listening and where people are just like, leave me alone. And we're getting wise to all of these messages that are out there that are blinding us to actually feeling like we're having any kind of connection to brands. So, Dad, Andy, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do and why you're here today?
Sure. But I'll start with that environment. So the digital environment is incredibly complex now and extraordinarily fragmented. So consumers, as consumers, we check out. We've each done hundreds of searches already today, I would guess. And we know where we started, we know where we ended, but we can't remember the path in between. And that's crucial because the path matters. If you're a brand, you want to identify the nodes in that path that you can get your message into at the right moment, that it will be seen by the consumers who have an interest in a way that they will respond to. That's always been marketing's mission, but in the current environment, it's become incredibly difficult. And it's incredibly difficult because, as you mentioned, consumers are skeptical. And they're skeptical partly because they get inundated and they're savvy to what brands are trying to do to them. So they've learned marketing to a degree.
Okay.
But they're also skeptical because there's a lot of bots out there and they don't know which messages are real.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about that then. We've been hearing about it a lot in terms of the election in America, which is actually where my dad lives. And also we've been with the whole Brexit fiasco, bots are big at the moment, and they are really messing with the digital landscape. But what impact have you seen that's had on brands?
Yeah, so the impact it's had on brands is that brands continue to spend. And bear in mind, I'm talking about big brands with big budgets, right? So the effect of it has been a significant drop in what they think of as ROI. So what they get for their money. And that's happened because consumers are switching off. They're not listening. Increasingly, they're not listening. They see the ad start to populate, and they can't wait for it to populate fully just to click the X that kills it.
Right. Okay. How do we get past that? And especially, you're talking about big brands and the kind of brands specifically, and it might help if we both look at the camera, because I'm just conscious that people are going to just see the sides of our beautiful faces. But yeah, so I mean, you're talking about brands we've worked with some of the biggest automotive brands in the world.
Yeah, big technology companies, big automotive companies. So Toyota's of the world, which are global, Ford, General Motors, they're all global. Technology companies, which are also global. And they have serious challenges now in reaching the right people at the right moment with the right message to get a return from it. And that problem is one which the business has always recognised. It's always been their challenge. It's just now there's not a single channel. It used to be TV.
Yeah.
There's not a single channel where you put your bulk of your money into it and you get that return.
Well, yeah. I mean, once we all know, as we were growing up, I mean, I'm one of the kind of generation that straddled the internet and before the internet. And we all remember how we all had to sit through adverts on the TV. And now even we can skip through adverts on the TV. So, then it became very much about infiltrating online space, and now we're just skipping past all of that too. So not very much of it is going in at all.
Right.
So what do we do about it?
So now marketing's challenge has become really acute, because the challenge of marketers has always been to get the right message to the right people at the right time, and the right time being when they're receptive to the message. And now the only solution to that in the digital environment, although there are many ways to do it, the only solution to it is to target individuals even more subtly and precisely. I'm not talking subtle in terms of messaging. necessarily. I'm not talking about any kind of subterfuge, but being really clear about where your potential audience, your buyers, live in the digital space, the places they go to, the patterns of use that they have, and putting your messages into them at the moment that they are likely to be more receptive to it. And there's now good research on this, and there are many, and we'll talk about some of those paths, but there's now good research on this that suggests that brands who spend the time to thoroughly understand where their prospective customers in particular sit in their journey, and which sites they use at different stages of that journey, and the connections between them, get a significantly better bang for their buck.
Right. So now, to kind of simplify that, it's no longer enough to just put some money behind some ad spend, put it out there into the ether, hope that it's going to resonate, and then that it's going to translate into sales, because people are becoming very much more savvy in their internet usage. Yeah. So with that in mind then, we were talking earlier about how businesses are adapting, and some ways that you personally have worked to create a better targeting structure.
Right.
So could you tell us a bit more about that? And again, bearing in mind that this is for big business, it might, for a small business, feel very out of your zone. So, but there are lessons that we can take that apply to small businesses as well.
Yeah, I won't talk about the detail of it. I'll talk about the essence of it, because I think there are many tools available, even for smaller brands. And I think maybe you can talk about that, Soph. But the essence of it is to understand precisely what it is that those who are in the market for your brand, their mindset resonates with your brand, what your brand represents, how they actually use the internet, where they spend their time, why they're there, and the moments at which they could be receptive to messages from you. And there are lots of analytic tools available to do that. But the more precisely you can do that, the better it is. Currently, when we started with the internet and using it as a channel, it was scattergun. It was a big blast. And
it did work then, because everything evolves. Right. And that's what I find so exciting about working in the digital space, is everything is evolving so quickly. And it's constantly a challenge to keep up with how things are evolving, how people are shopping, how people think and engage with their own identity as well as other brands' identities. And so, you've got to be constantly innovating in this space.
Yeah, you do, and all of that works, and it still works. I mean, you blast out now, you're still going to get a return. It's just that it's falling, and the big brands that I know and work with are seeing that fall significantly, and therefore they're asking questions about how can we do this better, and you do it better by more people spend spaces, the digital spaces, the online spaces they go. And when they might be open to your brand. And there's lots of analytic tools, combinations of research, market research in the traditional form, and digital analytics, which are increasingly growing, which allow much more precise targeting. But they're costly, and they're the kind of thing that, a big brand, it's worth investing in.
Yeah, especially, I mean, if you're an automotive brand like you work with,
right, or a big tech company,
you're going to get a lot of money for that one lead.
You're going to get a return from spending the money to figure that stuff out.
Yeah,
you're going to do it, but it isn't possible for smaller brands. Yet there are tools in the available even for smaller brands to do something very, very like this. And I think you're working with some of those already. Different ways to do this.
Well, I mean, you might have seen on social media, because we've been really, really excited about it, that we have recently become a HubSpot partner agency. And that means that we are going to be bringing our clients, those that want to be involved within this, which we will wholeheartedly recommend that they do, onto the platform, because we are able to target so much more specifically. We're able to build much more powerful user personas. And that is so important, because it's not just going to be based on a general analytical view, which you can get through Google Analytics or social media analytics, which gives a kind of demographic percentage of the type of people rather than the actual people. And that's what we were talking about. It's so now, it's so much more important to understand exactly who is interested in what you have to offer, what challenges they have, how can you provide the solution to those challenges, at what point can you start to engage with them and talk to them about what their challenges are, and then use your amazing personalities and what you have to offer to really provide them value, and not just be shouting out into the abyss and hoping that at some point someone somewhere is going to hear you and then resonate with your message. So yeah, there are tools available to smaller businesses, and I think it's becoming more and more important, regardless of whether we feel like our budgets don't allow that, to invest in that as a first port of sorry if you keep losing us, my phone is not the best. But yeah, everything else then follows, and that kind of information and that kind of insight really needs to be the foundation. Right. And everything else needs to be built from that point. And if you don't have that foundation, it's almost like any money that you spend is really actually not, it doesn't have the same power behind it, and you can't guarantee the return on that.
Yeah, and that's true whether you're a big brand, a global brand, a national brand, or a local brand. Mm. Identifying the mindset that your brand resonates with and understanding how they live in the internet world gives you the tools to better target.
Yeah. To
deliver a message at the right time to the right people in a way which is going to generate much richer responses.
Yeah. And, to kind of conclude within that, it's a really exciting space to be in, because it might feel like it's more difficult. It might feel like you need to invest more time and more money. And to a degree, that's true. However, when you are putting that time and money and investment in, you're really seeing the impact that your business and your service and your product is having on people's lives. And I would argue that there is absolutely no point in having a business these days unless you're actually providing something that's of value to people that isn't already there in whatever niche or whatever specific way you're doing it. So not only are you reaching these people and driving your business forward and growing your revenue, you're also making sure that your product or service is as valuable and as great and as developing as well as it possibly can, right. Because you're hearing from the people who really care and who really need it about what they need and why they care, right. Which is really, really, right. It is actually like a very exciting space to be in.
It's a virtuous circle when that starts to happen. And the returns when you start to target more precisely are typically very, very substantial. The work I've been involved in recently has shown around about 32% increase.
Oh, wow.
In sales as a consequence of this much more targeted communication. You meet the right people with the mindset that your brand is relevant for. Mm-hmm. They recognize you, they take an interest, and the rest follows.
And a lot of the time they then become customers for life. Because, especially, well, not even especially, but in the automotive sector, a lot of people are brand ambassadors. They only drive Volkswagen, or they only drive...
Increasingly less so. But
really?
But it was true. I mean, and there are families of Ford drivers in the United States.
Yeah.
But that's increasingly changing.
Although doesn't everyone drive a Passat? Is it a Passat? It's literally everybody either drives a truck or...
If they all drove Passats, then Volkswagen would be very happy.
No, it's not a Passat. What is it? It's a Toyota...
Well, actually, the best-selling vehicle in the United States is the Ford F-150. It's a truck.
Oh, that's
but it only gets 4% of the market, so it's incredible. That's
right.
Anyway, that's it.
So but the point is that you get people on board and they, and then they have a good experience of you. They become ambassadors of your brand, right. And then they talk to their friends about you, and then obviously then you build out your customer base that way, right. And that is especially true of the kind of businesses that we work with, which are challenger businesses who are make a difference in their industries and who actually have a product that is providing even more than it's a real benefit to people's lives. It literally makes people's lives better.
Work.
Oh, okay. Oh, we might have lost you then. I have no idea if you just heard us sing song or not.
But it was brilliant.
It was really
good. But just to wrap up there, so because this thing is going to fail.
Okay. We're in the countryside.
I have to create that.
Yeah.
They serve a functional purpose, but the emotional resonance is different.
Yeah.
So yeah, for your brands, this kind of targeting can be much, much richer.
Oh, Robin says property. Hi, Robin.
Robin.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. For us, we have a kind of almost already made audience and already made community, because the brands we work with are providing a seriously important service or product. But that's not the case for all brands. So you're right. Then it becomes even more important to understand exactly who your audience is as individuals, not as some guessed generic percentage.
Right.
So that we're going to wrap up now, because we keep losing signal, and it's been great to have you on board, Dad.
It's a pleasure.
Look
Sophie.
at our like-minded facial units. Is there one thing that you want to, kind of one soundbite that you'd like to give to people who've been watching that they can then take away and use for their own businesses?
I mean, so much has changed in the marketing landscape in the time I've been involved. From the Stone Age to now, but one thing hasn't changed, which is to understand exactly what your brand represents and why you matter.
Mm-hmm.
And when you've understood that, you have the best chance in the world of communicating to people with the like mind. And if you have a relevance, they'll find you, but you need to find them, because it's so competitive. So using the tools we've been talking about will really make a difference.
Fantastic. So it always comes back to that why, and it also comes back to knowing exactly who you're talking to and why they should care about what you have to offer. So thank you very much for watching, and thank you very much for having me in your country house, and also for coming on Facebook Live with me. And we are going to go and have a nice walk, and you have a lovely weekend. All right. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.